Could Battlefield 2042 be the end of Battlefield? I know, the title's very doom and gloom, but hear me out. So, yesterday EA held their quarterly earnings call where they count their stacks of fat cash that we stupidly handed to them. But during this call, Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, had some interesting things to say about Battlefield 2042 and the direction for the Battlefield franchise as a whole.
We didn't have a challenge in Q3 as the launch of Battlefield 2042 did not meet expectations. Battlefield 2042 was always an ambitious game, and our teams pushed to innovate across many dimensions, including massive scale and 128 player matches, new modes, new dynamic gameplay, and more. Developing this game with our teams working from home for nearly 2 years ultimately proved to be challenging. Through our process for testing and preparation, we believed the experience was ready to be put in our players' hands. We launched with strong stability. However, as more players experienced the full game, it became clear that were unanticipated performance issues that we would need to address. Some of the design choices we made with the game also did not resonate with everyone in our community. We are fully committed to realizing the full potential of this game and fully committed to our Battlefield fans. We've already implemented a series of major updates to the game, and there is more to be done. Players can expect meaningful updates to continue in the weeks ahead, and we are shifting the first season of live service content to early summer as we work closely with our community to evolve and improve the core experience in Battlefield 2042. Despite Battlefield's miss against our expectations, with the strength of our business, we are continuing to deliver record growth and performance in FY22. With Battlefield's performance to date and our decision to move the first season of live service into Q1 FY23 so we can focus on the core experience, we've adjusted our full-year net bookings guidance to $7.525 billion, which remains $225 million above our original net bookings guidance for FY22. On the strength of our live services, operational discipline, and continuing digital transformation, we're reaffirming our full-year expectations for underlying profitability.
Those were Andrew Wilson's opening remarks about Battlefield 2042's failure. Obviously, he's reiterating what we learned earlier that day about the Season 1 delay and the direction they're taking with the game. He also seems to blame its failure on the team being overambitious and implementing a ton of features that nobody even asked for, I might add, as well as the whole working from home thing again. Then he goes on to state they believe the experience was ready to be put into players' hands and they launched, and I quote, with strong stability. That's just an outright lie. This game was never, ever stable. We all played the beta, we all told DICE and EA there and then that it needed at least another 6 months in the oven. Performance was bad, map design was bad, etc, but they assured us it was an older build and the full release would be much different. Okay, so along with Andrew on the call was Blake Jorgensen, the CFO or Chief Financial Officer for EA, basically the money man. And he had some very interesting new insights about where the Battlefield franchise sits within EA's overall earnings. This is what he had to say.
We'll formally guide FY23 in May when we report Q4. But we've heard that some of you are concerned that the Battlefield performance might impact next year's growth. Let me emphasize here again that we are a portfolio company. As originally forecast, the Battlefield franchise would have accounted for significantly less than 10% of this year's net bookings, and well below 5% of next year's. We're revising those numbers, but you can see it has little impact on FY23 growth. The main drivers of growth next year remain FIFA on console, Apex Legends, Apex Mobile, and FIFA Mobile.
So even with their original forecast for profits, Battlefield was only forecast to bring in 10% of total net bookings this fiscal year and less than 5% next year, since obviously there'll be no Battlefield release that year and only season passes and microtransactions being sold. Like he said, they've got so many other massive franchises that are making so much more money than Battlefield. Apex Legends, absolutely massive. FIFA, every year people buy the exact same game. They absolutely rake it in with microtransactions in that game. Let's not forget about The Sims, Need for Speed is coming, the Dead Space remaster is coming, and then of course, as we recently learned, there are 3 new Star Wars games in development. One of them almost definitely will be Jedi Fallen Order 2, and that will sell like hotcakes because the first game was one of my favourites. It was excellent. So with all these other IPs that do what they do best right, they stick to their formula each year and deliver that same experience to the fans. FIFA is largely the same year in, year out. The Sims is still very similar to what it was on release, but meanwhile with Battlefield trying to reinvent the wheel and falling flat on its face, the question is, how long are EA willing to linger in the shadow of all of this backlash around the Battlefield games? They must know that this is all painting the EA company in a negative light, and sometimes it makes me wonder, how much are DICE and the Battlefield franchise actually worth to EA? So here's a question that came in from an analyst from Deutsche Bank, and he asks 2 questions. So first, just around Battlefield, can you guys sort of frame for us how you think about the vision for the future of that franchise, and in particular, how the new leadership for the Battlefield team is thinking about expanding and adapting that franchise over time?
Again, we have very bold vision for where this franchise goes. This franchise has always led the category in creativity, innovation, scale, gameplay, community. And as we came into launch, again, we had a very bold vision for this game. As it turns out, we've had some challenges, not least of all trying to build this game and file this game from home. And so our focus now is really making sure that core experience lives up to our fans and the community's expectations. Beyond that, we'll continue to invest and grow the franchise. We have great leadership with Vince and Byron and others, with tremendous background from other great shooters in the industry, kind of leading the future. I believe that, we're going to see this game do really well over the course of time. I think we'll expand to mobile and we'll expand to other new and interesting ways to play. But certainly this is just a moment where we take a pause and do all that we can for the core game and the core community.
So Andrew kind of reiterates his opening statements here, but he then goes on to talk about the future of the franchise, references Vince and Byron, that is Vince Zampella of Respawn Entertainment, creators of Apex, and Byron Bede, ex-general manager of Call of Duty. As for the direction they're looking to take the game, nobody really knows. It could be heavily influenced by Apex and COD, or maybe, just maybe, they'll actually listen to what the Battlefield community want. But one thing is sure, from this statement, it definitely sounds like there will be another Battlefield game for sure, but still, it makes you wonder how many more failures they can stomach, at least with DICE at the helm. Now, this next question is quite interesting. This guy asks about units sold and the possibility of Battlefield going free to play. Have a listen to this.
Question is, I guess on Battlefield, obviously it's disappointed. Can you size the units you sold in the quarter? I think you guided for 12 or so, but just sort of curious where you ended up versus expectations. And then thinking about how you sort of re-engage that audience, there's been some ideas around free-to-play. Curious if that's a possibility. And then I didn't hear mobile. Did you drop mobile for Battlefield, or was that just delayed? Thanks, guys.
So Mike, thanks for your nice comment to the other analysts as well. Unfortunately, I'm sure I won't get as much skiing as I would like, but we're going to refrain from trying to give updates on units because we know that we sold less units than we thought we would. But what I would say is that remember these games are long tails, and a new excitement to stretch this out, and in some ways we hope it benefits FY23 since we've had a pretty strong FY22, and so it helps. I'll let Andrew address,
So Blake just flat out refuses to share info on how many units were shipped because obviously it was very disappointing. Also, let me just say, it's a shame to hear that he didn't get in as many skiing trips as he would have liked, what with all our money that we shelled out on Battlefield 2042. That's just how it turns out sometimes, Blake.
Yeah, so I think that, you remember coming into the launch, the demand metrics were very high. And so that, reaffirms for us the core underlying creative for the game still has really strong demand around it. I think, as I've mentioned, we had some challenges around stability, particularly on high-end PC machines and performance, and there were some design decisions that, not all the community really agreed with. And so our focus right now is to really go back in and make sure we get that stuff right. And as much as I hate to admit it, DICE is a studio that has been able to do this a number of times now and really go back in, rebuild at the core and re-engage the community, as long as we do that in conjunction with the community. And that's what that studio is so great at doing. So I think the combination of DICE with the new leadership and a strong vision for the future, we will build out the core, we will, re-engage the community, and we will manifest that demand that we saw coming into launch over the course of time.
As much as I hate to admit it, DICE is a studio that has been able to do this a number of times now. This sentence here is just a really odd thing to say. It essentially sounds like DICE have gotten really good at messing up releases and then fixing what's gone wrong and re-engaging with the community. And I guess in some ways he's right. DICE do have a long history of messing things up, pissing off their core community, and then having to patch things up over the following year. All this time, I think we've all been believing that this has mostly been EA's fault, right? That they've been pushing DICE too hard when the game wasn't ready for release and influencing design decisions. But you have to stop and look and ask, why aren't EA's other franchises falling flat on their faces? Surely if EA were largely to blame, you see a similar story with totally unfinished products and missed deadlines across all their other games. We already know that EA had to pull other studios off of their current projects in order to go help DICE because they were basically in the shit, and in spite of that, the game still failed to be ready for launch. Something tells me that EA aren't too happy with DICE at the moment either. I know we all say this every time this happens, but hopefully DICE actually learned something this time around. I hope whatever Vince Zampella and the boys have planned for the franchise will be good and will take the franchise in the right direction. And yeah, roll on June, I guess, right boys? Because that seems to be the next big content drop that's coming. Leave me your thoughts on this below, guys. I'd be interested to know what you think, or if you prefer to talk to me live, you can of course reach me over on Twitch. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video.